Welcome back to the Impact Storytelling Podcast. I'm your host, Sabine Saavedra, conservation documentary filmmaker and NGO director. And today I'm joined by Carissa Cabrera. Karissa is a marine conservationist, science communicator, and the founder of FutureSwell, a nonprofit using storytelling to mobilize ocean action. You may know today's guest as the voice behind Karissa and the Climate, a go-to digital series that translates ocean science for Gen Z and millennial audiences. But behind every campaign and conservation effort is a deeper story, and today we're going to explore hers. Carissa's journey began in marine biology, but it quickly evolved into something bigger, building community-driven movement that connects climate science with culture, identity, and place. Based in Hawaii, her work is rooted in the Pacific, its reefs, its people, and its future. Today, we'll talk about where it all started, how she's using media to shift narratives, and why storytelling might be the most powerful tool for protecting the ocean. Just a quick moment to say, if you're enjoying the Input Storytelling podcast and would like to support it, you can do so through Patreon. Starting at just €3 a month, your support helps keep the podcast going. As a patron, you also get early access to guest announcements and a chance to submit questions for upcoming interviews. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, you can find the link in the show notes. Thank you so much for being part of this journey, and let's get into the episode. Welcome to the podcast, Carissa. I am happy to have you here. What first drew you to
I'm
the
happy to be
ocean?
here.
Thank you. What first drew you to the ocean? Was there a formative moment that made you fall in love with marine life?
Yeah, I don't have a really traditional story because I grew up in a landlocked state that didn't have access to the ocean. The ocean was always a very special place that I experienced on vacation with my dad and with my family. And so, because of that, I was always looking forward to the next time. And the first time I ever ended up in the water, I was snorkeling. And those who are listening understand what it's like to be underwater for the first time with a mask. You can see everything, and I remember feeling like I was in a totally different universe, and it started like a lifelong love for the ocean that I still have today.
Amazing. Yeah, I also grew up landlocked and my journey kind of started similar. What inspired the creation of FutureSwell, or previously known as the Conservation Collective? Was it an aha moment that said, this is the thing the ocean world needs?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't an aha moment, but I appreciate you bringing up the Conservationist Collective because it just goes to show that we picked the wrong name at first, and we ended up doing an entire an entire rebrand a few years in because we realized it was wordy and difficult to say and difficult to memorize. Ultimately, FutureSwell was born because I had worked for so many incredible nonprofits that then weren't telling their stories with media. They weren't getting on podcasts like this. They weren't talking on social media. They weren't doing short form videos. And I wanted to FutureSwell to be the body that helped nonprofits tell their story, like you do with all of your guests.
So, what would you say is FutureSwell's core mission? How does storytelling play into ocean conservation?
Yeah, I think our mission is to educate, inspire, and activate the ocean conservationists of tomorrow within the movement. That can be new people who might be learning about ocean issues and solutions for the first time, or it could be people that maybe already have a foundational knowledge but want to do more. So we want to make it accessible and irresistible and extremely inviting for everybody, and to make it easy too. We want them to be able to just plug in their headphones on their drive.
Your projects range from education to policy to art. How do you choose what to focus on?
Well, I will say I'm not an artist, so we like to amplify artists, but I'm not. I feel like I'm most passionate about things that are rooted in education
Uh-huh.
because I think that's the beginning of awareness to start people on their journey. So I choose based off of where there's funding, where there's interest, and what I see the gaps in. And because the goal is to help add something to the conversation that maybe hasn't been covered before or add it into the conversation with a different perspective. So I honestly choose it based off of the situation at hand and then go from there.
And you've worked on different projects: restoration with Kuleana coral, policy with Care for Aina Now. Can you tell us more about them?
Yeah, of course. I'm based in Hawaii, which is an honor to work here for the ocean. And things happen very word of mouth here. And so because of that, that's how I got bought. That's how I was brought into both of those projects, which I'd been working on for 3 to 5 years since. And so I didn't have a background in policy. So anyone listening, just know that you can get involved in ocean and climate work without a background as long as you have people who believe in you, who you're able to ask questions to. And they were both brought in through word of mouth through friends. So for Care for Aina Now, the policy, that was a friend of mine's partner who needed support with social media. And I came in and I really took it seriously. And then I asked for more responsibilities later. And then for Kuleana Coral, I always wanted to work for them because I thought the way they were approaching coral restoration was um, the right way to go about things. And so I found someone who was working with them and asked them to connect us personally. And that's how I got in.
What exactly are these organizations doing? Can you go a little bit more into that?
Yes. So Kuleana Coral is one of the coral restoration nonprofits in Hawaii. We are planting coral
Hmm.
underwater. We are working with local communities to figure out what types of coral restoration techniques they want for their ocean. Maybe they want more fish habitat because they're a community that relies on fishing, or maybe they want coastal protection because they're a community that's seen a lot of erosion on their coastline. So I work as a development manager. So I get to help us build programs and write grants and build partnerships, which is really exciting. And then Care for Ida Now is very unique. It's actually a coalition. So it's many organizations, around 60 actually. There's 50 to 60 organizations in it. And we came together to help pass a policy, which ended up passing this year in 2025 as the first visitor green fee in the United States. And it's a way to fund climate and conservation solutions through tourism investment. And that works in other parts of the world, like the Galapagos and parts of Europe and the other areas in the Pacific, like Palau. But the idea is that they needed someone as a consultant to help organize the coalition, to help lead events, and to help do implementation work. And so I've been with them for many years, learning a lot. I'm very, um, just, I just show up willing to be helpful and try my best. And so we work with a ton of different partners through that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it totally does. Thank you for giving an insight into
That's
that.
awesome.
And you have been, what have been some of your favorite or most surprising partnerships through FutureSwell?
When you start an organization, it's easy to think that you are going to build partnerships by emailing someone that you've admired and then they reply and they say, "Yes, we'd love to partner." But truthfully, the all of the partnerships we built at FutureSwell have been through a personal relationship starting the conversation. Maybe I met them at a conference, maybe I met them through a friend, maybe they work for an organization that does similar things. And the most surprising ones are the ones where I thought maybe they weren't interested or they didn't know what we did at all, but they said, "Oh, actually, we would really benefit from that." Or partnerships that maybe rejected or not rejected, but didn't need work in the beginning that I maybe reached out to and then have come back to us a few years later and say, "Hey, we're ready now. We're ready to prioritize storytelling." And those types of partnerships just show me that this really is like lifetime work and long-term investment in the relationships that you build because we're all working towards the same things. And to be able to work, like, for example, what you do with the podcast, that's something that is being done halfway across the world, but we're still working on this same mission to make the ocean accessible in the audio and podcasting world. And I know that this might be our first time conversating, but I have no doubt that if we both continue down this podcast conservation message mission, our work's going to come across each other's paths in the future again.
Definitely. I also realized that how connected we all are. Also through the podcast guests, yeah, I know this person and that person, and then going to conferences, like you said, meeting people. It's great and it's really important to meet a lot of people and connect and work together.
Yeah, I saw you interviewed my friend, Dr. Shireen,
Yeah.
and I was when I was looking at the podcast, I was like, "Oh my gosh, she interviewed Shireen," and so it's just silly to see us all, like, working in the same space, doing the same things, and just we're all gonna meet each other eventually.
Yeah, I met her at Wild Screen last year and then asked her if she wants to be on the podcast.
Amazing.
And what, in your view, is the most misunderstood thing about ocean conservation?
That's a good question. Um, the biggest misunderstanding in ocean conservation is that, you have to be a marine biologist to be part of it. You don't. Actually, everyone can participate in ocean conservation solutions. I also think that when they think of saving the ocean, they think of reducing plastic, which is very important and very good. But there's so many other really, really big solutions that are global that we need everybody participating in. And I think that people may believe that other people are already doing that work. But when you work in the space like we do, you see that it's actually a very small group of people and that we desperately need more people doing the work. And so this is, I guess, people listening's invitation to be part of that because we really do ultimately need people stepping up past the plastic, past the just simply voting and organizing and advocating with us on ocean solutions because the ocean it's not confined to a country, it's not confined to a coastline, it touches everyone, even if you're landlocked like me and you grew up. And so that means that work you do anywhere in the world impacts the ocean, which also means that you can be implementing ocean solutions anywhere in the world, which is exciting.
Yeah, with my organization here in Austria, we are also showing the people how they can conserve the ocean from land and also when they go to the sea, how to behave there. And I'm also currently working on a new series showing women in the ocean conservation field that are not all scientists, that also conserve the ocean with art or with film or with something else. So it's great to show different
Wow.
voices.
It's all needed, right?
Yeah. And you also have something very special that you build. What role do platforms like Carissa and the Climate play in the broader climate education movement?
Yeah, I had people in my life who call me an influencer, which is a funny thing, because of that platform, but ultimately, started posting on TikTok during the early days of the platform, and I was one of the very few voices discussing ocean climate topics,
Hmm.
and so I it grew very quickly, I think, just because it was a niche and a need, and so Carissa and Climate really feeds into our goal with FutureSwell to make ocean topics accessible on media. FutureSwell is a much smaller platform, and so to be able to spotlight the work that we do at FutureSwell through the Carissa and Climate,
Hmm.
platform is one really valuable attribute of it, but another really valuable attribute of it is just to show the personal story and the personal journey of me as a founder, as someone who's working in the ocean movement so that people can see themselves in me, specifically young women. I really want that whole platform is built for young women to understand what it looks like a few years ahead of them if they were to stick to this job and what they could do. And there's now so many other ocean conservation voices on social media platforms, and they all bring something different to the audience. And I just hope that we can have this like unignorable community of ocean influencers on social media, inspiring people to take better care and to also build their careers, whether it be in art, like you were talking about earlier, or communications, like we do, or in science and research, like what you think of as a traditional marine
Hmm.
scientist.
Yeah, I actually found you via TikTok back then a couple of years ago,
Really?
and I watched you, yes. And then started following you on other platforms as well.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome, Sabine. That's so awesome.
And FutureSwell is involved in Hawaii based storytelling. What are some Hawaii specific challenges or stories that mainland conservation orgs might miss?
Yeah, so it's a totally different world out here compared to the mainland. First of all, we're an island. So island communities are experiencing the impacts of ocean climate issues very intimately and on the front lines, right? I go to the beach, especially here, and I see it eroding. And so beach erosion and sea level rise are very intimately obvious in our backyard, whereas that's not as obvious as, say, if you're on the continent. The second is that being in Hawaii, we are very uniquely positioned in the middle of the Pacific, and we're in the middle of a convergence of many ocean currents that bring plastic pollution to our shorelines. Specifically in the town that I live in, it's on the east or the windward side of the island. And so we get so much microplastics on our coastlines from all over the Pacific. And it's something that we see whenever there's winter waves, and so those are just 2 examples in the ocean space, but one that's very important is that we're also in Oceania, which is a term to describe all of the Pacific and all of the communities that live in the Pacific, and these communities are ocean communities. They their culture, Native Hawaiians' culture, and, Polynesian culture and Oceania culture is deeply embedded within ocean health, and it's such a deep privilege to be able to work in a community that understands that the ocean isn't just necessary for their survival, but it's viewed as part of their family. And because of that understanding and because of that wisdom that is brought by the communities here in Hawaii, we are just able to take ocean issues and run with them with solutions because everyone is on the same page of how important it is. And it's something that I continuously am in awe of and that I don't know if other people experience in the same way that I get to here. And it's just it's really a gift working here.
It's amazing that the people have such a connection and really want to do something for the ocean, and they don't have to tell them so much about it and teach them the connection. And you had so many wonderful experiences, or maybe sometimes not so wonderful, but what is one moment from the field that totally changed how you see your work?
This is this is more of a experience rather than an ocean experience, but it is all connected. Um and a few years ago, we experienced some severe wildfires that made national and international news on the island of Maui. And because I was involved with the coalition working to pass policy, we were advocating that legislative session for money for wildfire prevention and solutions in the wake and in response of those fires. And as someone who was working on the communications and storytelling for that, I was able to go over to the area that had suffered from the burn zone with the community. The community brought us in, and it hadn't been opened at that point. We were doing filming to talk about the importance for this urgent funding for this solution. And me and my co-founder Alex, we left with a completely different perspective of our work because not only was it heavy and important and essential, but we realized that this work of showing what community response looks like in the wake of climate disasters, whether it's fires or whether it's bleaching events in the ocean, the fires caused a lot of toxic ash to go in the water that harmed coral reefs. We realized that those community perspectives were the most important stories to tell, and that we have to be one of the groups telling those stories. And just a year later, we saw the mass coral bleaching in the Caribbean over here in the United States. And I saw storytelling and photos and imagery and videos put that on a national platform. And this work of showing what's happening and showing what could be a solution for it feels like some of the most important work in the movement right now because we have to ensure everybody understands the severity and also understands the opportunity we have to change the course right now.
And when we're just talking about a disaster, how do you personally handle echo grief or burnout, especially in a time when the climate crisis feels so constant?
I love that question. It comes up a lot these days in conversations. I have my own personal practice. I do believe that everyone needs to develop their own personal practice. You only know like what's okay for you and what works for you. I carry a lot. I'm a high responsibility person. I carry a lot of responsibility and the burden of the climate crisis, and so I just try to. My process is goes like this. I get off technology. I go spend time in nature for joy initially. So usually with my partner or my dog or my best friends, maybe go underwater, maybe go for a hike. It doesn't have to be in the ocean. And then the second piece of it, which is sometimes the most important, is I go and I do a community service or volunteer work day with a nonprofit and just very simple, not behind a computer, just maybe you're getting your hands dirty, maybe you're planting coral, maybe you're teaching kids, maybe you're just talking to people and meeting people at an event because the biggest medicine for climate anxiety and eco grief is remembering that you're not in this entire movement alone and then you actually have so many people next to you that you can lean on. And if you're someone who wants to talk things through, maybe it's talking about it with them, but maybe it's also just remembering that they're there by spending time with them. We all need those go-to people that we can go to. And I think it's important for all of us, if we don't have that practice, to really intentionally build it because it's something we're gonna have to lean on like throughout our lives and throughout our work, you know?
And what do you think, in your perspective, what does impact look like to you, and how do you know that your work is working?
I think impact looks different depending on what you're working in. So if you're an artist, your impact could look like the amount of people that you reach and your art shows. For us, it could be the amount of people who listen. But I kind of get a little bit bogged down with the numbers of impact, with trying to, when you write a grant or proposal, they want you to quantify your impact. I'm trying, I'm actually in a season right now, so it's very special that you asked this question, where I'm trying to release the number parts of impact and the quantity parts of impact, because I see impact when I go to a conference and someone across the world knows me from my videos, or I see impact when me and you are talking and you say, "Oh my gosh, I found you a few years ago." And that impact has a lot more weight and power than a number of you. And I think not all impact is created equal. And a lot of it is not quantifiable. A lot of it is, did we change someone's mind? Did we change like their heart on an issue? And sometimes you just don't know that. And you might not ever find it out, or you might find out about it years later when you run into them or you meet them in person. And so I try to, I guess my answer to your question is that I'm still defining what impact looks like, and I think that it's very difficult to do so.
It's true, and it's different for everything. And your ocean and climate curriculum is designed for younger audiences. What did you learn while designing education for the next generation?
I learned that it's gotta be fun and it's gotta be short. It's gotta be short, and it can be difficult. Our first curriculum was showing how the ocean is connected to the climate crisis. And we were talking about fossil fuel extraction and emissions and carbon and ocean acidification. And I was like, how are we going to make this fun for middle schoolers? And the way we did it was we made it short, we made it simple, we made it very engaging with like animations and the video editing part of it. And we just had our energy so high. And because of that, I hope it captivated their audiences. But I don't know, Sabine, like I think that I might not be the best person. I mean, we might need to ask someone like Bill Nye the Science Guy to be talking to students because he keeps people very engaged. He's kept an entire generation engaged.
I think you're doing a great job as well. And yeah, as you said, it needs to be short and kind of fast cut. That's where I always fail because I want to make everything like a film and slower and cinematic. But the real thing is, I think, what people really like to see right now because there is so many films and so much to see from the outside, but people really want to see the real things and yeah, how you explain it and show it. I think it's a great way.
It kind of kills me, right? Because, like, me and you are media people, so we want it to look beautiful. We grew up with ocean documentaries. We want it to feel like an ocean documentary. But sometimes people just want someone talking to the camera, and having to reconcile that what I want isn't what the audience wants is definitely part of the process.
Yeah, definitely is, and it can be hard. And just recently, you were at the National Geographic Explorer event. Can you tell us how your work with National Geographic started?
Yeah, so it started through an education grant through the curriculum that you just talked about. It's called Ocean Connections. And then we followed up with a curriculum called Cetaceans Connections. And we just did a project with an explorer in Africa called My Ocean Backyard. So, because I had just finished a grant with National Geographic, that's why I was invited to the Explorers Festival, which was such an honor. It was actually the first time ever that National Geographic educators were invited to the festival, so it was a big deal, and, my work with them started the way a lot of things start, which is I was searching and researching on their website if they had any grant opportunities, and I submitted a proposal and shot my shot during COVID and got a very small grant to make curriculum for middle school students that we spoke about. And then because of that, because I had gotten the initial grant, I had, taken care of that relationship and have applied for future project funding. So, um, they are really passionate about the same as me about the ocean education element of connecting it to the broader, exploration and climate discussion, which is kind of what my priority is when I think about projects with National Geographic.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing what builds up if you just look and put hard work in. It's great. And for a last question, what piece of advice would you give someone wanting to blend science and storytelling like you do?
I would say start I guess I shared in this episode that I do think it's some of the most important work in the movement, so I just wanna reiterate that. I would say start now. I had no media experience, no communications experience. I had done education and outreach with nonprofits, and I had studied marine science, and I had worked in ocean conservation solutions, and I just started and talked about it, and I put out stuff that was cringy and bad at first and not great, and the audio was messed up, and I just posted it anyway, and that's how you learn, and that's how you get better, and so don't let that paralysis prevent you from acting and posting because your unique story and your unique perspective is gonna reach a totally different audience than me or you's, and that's what we need in the movement is many, many millions of different stories crafting the ocean conservation movement, and just know that that can be you, and you do not have to be an expert to be doing it. You need to care, and you need to be consistent, and those 2 qualities will take you further than anything else.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah, I also was waiting a little bit till I showed anything because I'm not a scientist. I studied design and media and film, but now I work with scientists and I can share that. And yeah, you just, if you really want to do it, then there is always a way, and you just, um, yeah, empower yourself to do it and believe in yourself.
That's why your, podcast episodes are so beautiful because you studied media and film.
Yeah,
I was like, "She's got a studio, her audio's nice, the camera's good." I'm like, "Okay, that makes sense." And yeah, to be able to use those gifts for the ocean, thank you so much for that.
yeah, thank you as well for using your gifts. Yeah, I'm filming actually with a cinema camera, that's which I use for my films. So that's
Oh my
why
gosh, and
my video looks good.
I joined from the phone, guys, for those listening. I ruined Sabine's perfect studio. I'm so
Oh no,
sorry. I hope you
don't
guys
worry.
still watch.
I'm sure they will. Well, thank you so much for having taken the time to talk with me and share your story. And I hope maybe in the future we can work together on something and meet in person.
I think we will. I think our ocean paths will cross. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for the thoughtful discussion. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.